Okay, you guys, this should actually be the last of the opening events for the second set after you pick a route or make some choices that get you on a couple of routes. So after this, we'll be back on Boris's or Nightmares, depending on whichever one it was that was voted in. And we're going to pick right up where we left off with the twin gatekeepers who are possessed by the mad eggs.
Presented by Queen Rose. こんなに美しい卵であるこの俺をちょっと待っていて彼女に十分顔を見せたら次に君にも見せてあげるから
And he's like, wait for this beautiful egg, wait a second. We'll show enough face for you to be able to see it next. I believe is what that roughly translated to. She's like, and again towards me, ... She's like, hi, that's good, that's it. She's like, don't get so close. Immediately in front of you, his neck moves. Because the distance is close and the momentum is amazing, I am actually overwhelmed to see it. Surely it is creepy. Over time, the momentum is likely to turn 360 degrees. I feel like I read this in a story about a ghost or a monster in some book, and they're referencing The Exorcist. What about eggs? What are these people even talking about, she thinks. If one of them wonders if they have strangely overly self-conscious lines, the other just laughs at it. Both of them are actually funny. Dumpty looked normal, but the contents were different from his outside appearance. She's like, that's not the case for a decent person in this world. She's like, they're not this funny. And she's like, I'm really well acquainted with these two? With these two? Question mark, exclamation. If they think so, then if they are really acquaintances that are before me, she's like, I couldn't forget them. So they think so, and she's like, if they really were, then I couldn't forget them, these two in front of me. Rather, I will never forget them, even if I want to forget.
Oi! Nani shitteru nda, omaera!
And finally, Elliot cuts in. He's like, hey, what are you doing, you two? She's like, this voice. The voice suddenly jumped into my ear, and I take a quick breath in at the familiar sound. The Lord of Salvation, appearing in this situation, he has a hero's appearance, like a scene in a novel. This time I moved my neck to see the direction that this voice was coming from. A person, no animal, as expected, walks down the street in front of us. She's like, Elliot! Exclamation mark. March Rabbit, Elliot March, number 2 in the Hat Shop family, and also at the boss's heart. Like the White Rabbit Peter, he has a pair of rabbit ears, although he is short-tempered and a dangerous man who will let go of his gun without thinking about it in 3 seconds, like he'll shoot it off. So she's commenting on his character. He was close to me from the beginning, she mentioned.
Alice! Oi! Nani shitten da yo, Humpty? Sassato soitsu o hanase!
He's like, let go, Humpty. Hey, Alice, hey, what are you doing to her, Humpty? Elliot tangled with them for me for a moment and immediately moved to Humpty. He walked with a nice voice and then grabbed Humpty's shoulder.
乱暴はやめてくれよ、エリオット。 君に触れられると俺の奇跡が汚される気がする。
Humpty tells him, "Don't be violent, Elliot. When you touch me, I feel like my miracle looks will actually become subtle." Humpty makes a protest, however, his arm was pulled off by Elliot and left me. So he finally let go of her. And she's like, "That saved me!" Exclamation mark, trailing off. She's like, "Thank you, Elliot!" Exclamation mark. And at last, I became free, clinging to Elliot in a reflective manner. He was mad, so not going to leave you, and I'm not sure if you're shaking your rabbit ears over what happened, but you look like a hero to me now, she thinks. She's like, "Rabbit-eared hero, ha ha ha."
何が奇跡だ。くだらねえことを言ってるだけならまだいいが、今のは見過ごせねえぞ。
He's like, "What? What miracle?" Like, he's in reference to his looks. Like, what miracle looks? And he's like, "It's nice if you can just say things, but I can't overlook this, like what you just did now."
お前、こいつに何をしようとしてたんだよ。
He directly asked him, he's like, "You," and then trailed off, "What were you trying to do with this guy?" And he's like referencing Alice. Elliot turned off his embarrassed expression and took me away from Humpty. He will reiterate this question several times.
こいつはよそ者で、ブラッドも気に入ってるのは承知の上だろう。ことと次第によっちゃ、報告する必要がある。
He's like, "I know this guy is an outsider, and Blood loves her too," he comments.
さっさと話せよ。それともなんだ。話せねえようなことをしてたのか。
He was like, "Speak quickly, what did you grab them for? Or like, what did you attempt to do?" He yells at them in a low, amazing voice. She's like, "In one corner of my thoughts, I felt uncomfortable with Elliot's close time with the both of us." She's like, "But this is not the case now." She's like, "In one corner of my thoughts, I felt uncomfortable with how close Elliot was with me during times with both of us." And she's like, "But this is not the case now." She's like, "I'm grateful for it."
お前もボケっと見てただけのようだが、どういうことだ。まさか、お前らの遊びに巻き込もうとしてたってのか。あ？
So Elliot's still questioning them. He's like, "It just seems that you've supposed to watch them, and you've only been looking at me in a faint daze when I've been asking you." He's like, "What do you mean? Like, you see, I've been trying to get into what you guys were trying to play at." So it didn't translate too well, but he was basically like asking them, "What kind of play were you guys up to? Like, what were you trying to do with this person? Were you trying to take them off to like go do something?" The next question is to Dumpty. Elliot asks it of two people out of his anger. She's like, "I don't know what he's so angry about, ... but it's a sword that cools them down." So like his harsh reaction cooled them down. However, they were still very blurred on like things in reality.
誤解だよ、エリオット。その子はボスのお気に入りでもあるんだ。俺たちだってわきまえているさ。
They're basically like, "It's a misunderstanding, Elliot," and we know that that child is also Boss's favorite. We were talking about that.
誤解だ。そいつちょっと様子がおかしくて、アンプティが近づいて具合を見ていただけ。
And he's like, "Yeah, it's a misunderstanding." And then he's like, ... "It's a bit strange." And then he just got close and looked at her, him with Humpty. She's like, "Nah, well, even so, exclamation mark." She's like, "I wonder if that was him looking at me for the condition." She's like, "Looking at me for my condition." She's like, "It was me that was forced to have them look." Roughly, I think that's what it translated to. So Elliot's now asking, he's like, "What is wrong? Like, what happened? Like, what is it?" And she's like, "It was probably done in half-trust. He slowed down some momentum for scolding them."
元気そうじゃねえか。 どこが様子がおかしいってんだ?
And he asks her, he's like, you don't look fine, do you? Like, what's wrong with you? Question mark.
すごくおかしいよ。だって、俺とダンプティのことを忘れちゃったなんて言うんだ。
Humpty cuts in now and he's like, it's really funny. Like, you were acting funny because you say that you forgot about me and Dumpty. And as soon as possible, the Humpties are scattered. Elliot looked at me with an increasingly puzzled face.
アリス、本当なのかこいつの話。
So he was asking, like, really, this guy, like, was he being, like, truthful, kind of? And she was like, And she's like, now how do you answer him? She's thinking to herself that I feel like I forgot, or rather that I didn't know them, but it seems to be that way only to me, and now I feel uncomfortable. She's like, Humpty, Dumpty, and Elliot are supposed to be normal, so if I say I forgot and I don't know here, I will be treated as the strange child. She's like, if I'm judged abnormal by 3 people, it will be troublesome. She's like, that's a problem, and I don't know what to do, even if I'm really funny on actually remembering them. And she's like, now please, ... As a result of thinking, this time I was, like, out of touch too long. I didn't want to answer, I know, though. She's like, if you try to think about them, you'll be confused, but the sense of incongruity will not disappear. So she's like, I still don't feel like I know them. It doesn't flow right, like that they say that they were acquaintances.
は? さあねって。
He's like, wow. She's like cutting in and changing the subject. But what about blood? I actually came here to see blood. I cut Elliot's words and forcefully changed the story. I wanted to leave this place now. For the time being, I was able to get out of a development that I didn't understand, like this situation occurring. I want to meet Blood in the mansion, I said.
ブラッドは中にいるぜ。俺は野暮用で一人でちょっと出ていただけだから。
So she just totally dodged them and changed the subject while she was like thinking, she's like, this is what I came up with. And then he tells her, well, Blood is inside and I'm just out because I was in the field, he tells her. Elliot will answer you, but with a suspicious face, because you never answered him back on whether or not you remember them. And so I grabbed one of his hands and pulled it, still trying to, like, distract him. She's like, yes, then let's go. You will return to the mansion, right, Elliot? Question mark.
Oh.
And he's just like, oh, question mark, yeah. She's like, now. And then she's like, soon. With, like, a funny smile on her face. Pulling Elliot with gung-ho force. The Humpties have no response. Humpty and Dumpty had ridiculous faces, but did not put up any protesting words from their mouths. After all, when you see your boss in front of you, you don't seem to want to make noise. And she's like, Elliot! Exclamation mark. And he's like, I understand, I know, I'm going, don't pull, is what he, like, says.
わかったわかった。行くから引っ張るなよ。
And leaving the 2 strange gatekeepers, we go through the gate, me and Elliot. I rushed to the mansion to escape from the gazes I felt on my back.
なるほど。嵐の話が聞きたくて来たのか。
So Blood's like, I see. Did you want to hear about the story of the Arashi, so the storm? She's like, yeah, I've even heard of it at my place of stay. We passed through Blood's room and told him that we had come to visit. By the way, Elliot is also together with me. Anyway, what's wrong with this person? She asked them. Because she noticed that Blood wasn't his usual self. He's actually sitting on the couch and seemed to be drooling more than ever. She mentioned that there was no fragment of morning pep. So, like, he's usually lazy and kind of lackadaisical. But now he's, like, just out and out, like, checked out. She's like, Hatshot Blood Dupree, the head of this hat mansion and the boss of the Mafia hat group family. Or the hat store family. And she's like, a trademark hat is a trademark that does not work well for compliments. His personality is very capricious. He doesn't like boredom almost to death, although he's a difficult person to hate still. On the other hand, there's a part that can be said that is a genius and should be taken with respect to the rotation of the size of his head. So she's like in rotation to the size of his ego. In addition, for me, he has an embarrassing appearance of being a former lover. But for some reason, the face is actually right for him. I don't want to step in here so much, but he's a fun partner to socialize with as a friend, and that's why I was getting along with all of them very well. Blood has no response. And she asked him, like, you're behaving like a clacked frog. It's like a crazy frog. She's like, I'll give you a straightforward comment. She cuts in, because I'm a close friend. Ironically, she thinks to herself, I was close enough to be able to work in this degree of disrespect. I often thought he was like a sleepy sloth in the daytime, but that's not the right ratio right now.
遠慮のない評価をありがとう。せっかく来てくれた君には申し訳ないが、私は今ひたすらにだるいんだ。
After a long pause, he like sarcastically tells her thank you for the unreserved evaluation. He's like, I apologize to you for coming right now, but I'm just sloppy today, and then he trails off again. She's like, you're always a sloppy thing, but now it's more sloppy than usual, just direct, with a question mark.
どうしたもこうしたもない。今君が言った通りだ。だるい。
He tells her that there is nothing that you can do, ... Like you said, it's right now. And then he trails off again. And she's like, what? Question mark, question mark, question mark. She's like, as I said, question mark. It is not explained what he means. And since the statement isn't clear, I look to Elliot, who sits right beside me. Elliot says,
あんたが言った通り、嵐が来るからだよ。ブラッドは嵐が嫌いなんだ。
He tells her, as you said, it's because of the storm. Blood doesn't like the storm. I don't... like Arashi. So he doesn't like the storm is what she's commenting here and repeating back.
そう、大嫌いなんだ。嵐の前になると憂鬱で何もやる気が起きなくなるんだと。な、ブラッド。
So he says, yes, we hate it. Before the storm, it's a melancholy thing, and you don't want to do anything during it. And then he trailed off, and he's like, right, Blood? And Blood has no response. She's like, when called, he makes a face difficult to hate. And do you want to talk to them about random things, or do you want to talk about the storm? She questions, ...
大嫌いだ。嵐の気配を感じ始めてから、私は憂鬱で仕方がないんだよ、お嬢さん。
Blood tells her, oh, I hate it. Since I started feeling the storm, I'm depressed and I can't help it, young lady. Speaking in a small voice, like where you don't feel any energy, when listening, it seems that the tension will be coming down onto here as well. She's like, after a pause, hey, why do you hate it so much?
どうしても何もない。お嬢さんは私が喜んでいるとでも思ったのか。自分のどこかを狂わせていくなどというふざけた現象を。
Blood tells her it's no reason, nothing at all, and he's like, okay, did you ever think that we would go crazy about something like this? Question mark. He's like, what's the joke in this about? Think, young lady. And she's like, now I didn't think on it too deeply, ... but you hate being bored the most, right? And she's like, if a noisy storm comes, aren't you, lacking in boredom anyway? Bud often says this is the biggest criterion on whether or not he is connected to or excited about something, and if that's the case, the storm could be a sideshow for him. I thought so, but he shook his head as if it was ridiculous.
退屈はしないかもしれないが、楽しめもしない。自分であって自分でなくなるんだぞ。
He tells her you may not be bored, but you will not enjoy it, and you are yourself, and you are not yourself at the same time. So does that make sense? He's basically asking her, like, because you aren't yourself, you can't enjoy it.
物の判別もつかない状況では、いかに周囲に興味深いことが転がっていようと楽しめるものか。吐き気がするほど気分が悪い。
He mentions in a situation where there is no way to identify things, you can't enjoy how interesting things are rolling around you if you feel you're nauseous. She's like, ... I see. If you say so, and then you can be convinced if you do. She's like, does any entertainment have to be true to enjoy it? And she
嵐の
questions.
期間中は、私はできる限り部屋から出ないことにしているんだ。すまないが、君が遊びに来てくれても相手ができるかどうかわからない。
He just cuts her off. He's like, I'm doing something between then, and I'm sorry, but even if you come to play, I don't know if we can actually do it. But he was basically saying that he doesn't enjoy it because he's not himself, and she was asking him, like, well, does entertainment have to be, like, true to oneself in order for you to enjoy it? Like, can't you just enjoy a sideshow? And he's like, well, we're not going to play even if you come by. And she mentions that there were other people who were saying the same thing, and there was one more withdrawn declarer here as well. She was thinking about Vivaldi.
お互いのためにも、嵐の期間中は顔を合わせない方がいいだろう。こんなことは言いたくもないが、君に私でない私など見てほしくもないしな。
I actually kind of like his statement here. He's like, for both of us, it's better not to meet each other during the storm. He's like, I don't want to say this, and trails off, but I don't want you to see me as not me, like when I'm not myself. And the bitterly spoken words are not really something that Blood would usually say. She's like, that's right, Blood can't do anything if he's busy being crazy. But he doesn't want me to see it, is what she's thinking. And she's like, it's shameful for him, no matter how funny it might appear or it seems. ... She's like, okay, then I am definitely coming to see you. This is where we are actually going to save, you guys, because the last video that we are going to do for this update is actually the movie. So we're going to end this video here, you guys.